Why did the wind sound like whispers tonight? She stood on the airstrip, boots sinking slightly in the damp earth, staring past the chain-link fence at the horizon. Dawn was still an hour away, but the night wasn't quiet, it was alive, humming as if the air itself knew what was about to happen. The sky was the color of bruised steel, heavy with clouds, and somewhere beyond that horizon, the war was waiting for her. Her rifle case rested against her leg. She hadn't opened it yet. Didn't want to. The weight of it was familiar but heavier tonight, as if it knew what was coming too. The others were gathered near the trucks, voices low but nervous, too loud when they laughed. Soldiers pretending this was just another mission, pretending they weren't thinking about who wouldn't be here tomorrow. She stayed apart, she always did. The captain's voice cut through the mist. "Mount up." She didn't move right away. Her breath fogged in the air. One of the younger soldiers glanced at her, a nervous, too-quick glance, then looked away. They all knew she was good at what she did, better than anyone here, but they also knew what had happened last time. She crouched, fingers finding the rifle case latches. The metallic click echoed in the early silence like a gunshot. The case opened, cold steel, smooth matte black. The weapon was clean, oiled, ready, always ready. She wasn't sure she was. The transport truck smelled like diesel, canvas, and stale sweat. No one talked much once they were on the road. She sat by the window, chin propped on her fist, watching farmland dissolve into hills, then into darker terrain as they neared the border. Her thoughts kept circling back to the letter she'd left behind in her bunk, the one sealed in an envelope, sitting where someone would find it if she didn't come back. She hated that she wrote it. She hated that she needed to. An hour into the ride, the captain leaned forward from the cab and spoke just loud enough for them all to hear. "This isn't a clean mission," he said. "Intel is thin, expect resistance." A groan from the back, someone cursed under their breath. She said nothing, just checked the safety on her weapon, the way someone checks their own pulse to make sure they're still alive. The rookie across from her tried to smile at her. She didn't return it. He looked away quickly, embarrassed. That used to be her years ago, young, scared, needing someone else's courage to hold on to. Now she was the one people looked at before the fight. And she wasn't sure she wanted that anymore. Halfway to the drop zone, the first explosion came. It was small, far enough away that they felt it more than heard it, but it was enough to jolt the truck. Everyone went silent. Then the second one hit closer. The truck swerved violently, dust filled the cabin, the driver cursed, fighting the wheel. "Contact front," someone shouted. She was already moving, hand on her rifle, boots hitting the dirt before the vehicle even stopped. The night was alive with tracers, thin orange lines cutting across the dark, fast and deadly. She hit the ground, rolled behind a rock outcrop, breath steady despite the adrenaline hammering in her ears. She saw him then, the shooter. Just a flash from the tree line, the glint of a barrel. She adjusted by instinct. Exhaled. Fired once. The flash went dark. But something about the way he dropped stayed with her. He'd been young, too young. The firefight was short, brutal. By the time the last shot echoed into silence, the smell of gunpowder clung to everything, their clothes, their skin, the cold dawn air. The others cheered quietly, small, tired cheers. She didn't join them. Her hands were steady as she cleaned her rifle, but her chest felt hollow. "Hell of a shot," the captain said quietly as he passed her. She nodded once but didn't look up. By the time they reached the staging area, dawn was breaking. The sky was bleeding into pale orange, washing over the burned-out tree line, turning the smoke into strange, shifting ribbons. Someone passed her a canteen. She didn't drink. Instead, she walked a little way off, just far enough to be alone. She could still feel the trigger under her finger, still see the face of the boy in the trees. This wasn't new. She'd done this before, too many times before. But something about this one was different. The war outside wasn't the problem anymore. It was the one inside her that wouldn't stop. She didn't tell anyone, not yet. They needed her steady, needed her quiet focus. But as she sat in the mud, cleaning the rifle that never missed, she felt the weight pressing down on her chest. Somewhere inside her, something was beginning to crack. And for the first time since she'd started this job, she wasn't sure she could hold it together. When the captain came back with orders, she stood, silent, shouldering her pack. The others fell in behind him. No one saw her hesitate for half a second. No one saw her close her eyes and take one deep breath, steadying herself before she moved. The sun had finally cleared the horizon. And with it, the day's first mission was about to begin. The sound of boots on gravel was the only sound as they marched. No one talked. Somewhere far off she could hear distant artillery, like thunder. And in her chest, another kind of thunder. A war no one else could see. She was the last in the column as they moved out, her shadow stretching long across the dirt road. Somewhere ahead, another firefight was waiting. Another choice. Another face she'd have to live with. And for the first time, she wondered if she'd be able to pull the trigger. This was no longer just another mission. This was a reckoning. And though no one else knew it, her war had already begun, long before the first shot was ever fired. Why was she hesitating? The column moved forward, boots crunching on gravel, rifles slung and helmets low. The sun had just cleared the horizon, staining the clouds with pale gold. The light made everything sharper, the edges of the trucks, the glint of metal, the tired lines on the men's faces. She should have felt sharper too. Instead, every step felt heavier than the last. She checked her rifle out of habit, fingers tracing the weapon's familiar lines. Nothing wrong with it. Nothing wrong with her, at least not on the outside. But her chest was tight. Her throat dry. She told herself it was just the adrenaline, just the crash after the ambush. But she knew better. They reached the outpost just before noon. It was nothing more than a cluster of low concrete buildings half buried into a hillside. Sandbags piled high around the entrances. The kind of place that smelled like sweat, gun oil, and stale coffee no matter where you stood. The captain gathered them in the mess hall. A crooked fan spun overhead, barely moving the hot air. She leaned against the wall, arms crossed, listening. The intel officer was speaking fast, pointing to a hand-drawn map on the table. "Targets here," he said, stabbing a finger at a shaded area deep past the ridgeline. "We believe they're moving supplies through this valley. If we cut them off tonight, it'll slow them down for weeks." Someone asked a question about support. There wasn't much. The plan was simple, too simple. Get in, cut the route. Get out before anyone knew they were there. Everyone nodded grimly. She said nothing. Her eyes stayed on the map, tracing the valley lines. She'd been there before, months ago. She remembered how quiet it was at night, how the mountains swallowed sound. And she remembered what she had lost there. Later, as the others cleaned weapons and joked to pass the time, she found herself outside, sitting on the edge of a concrete step. The air was thick with heat now, the kind that clings to your skin and makes you feel slow. She took off her gloves and rubbed her hands together, trying to ground herself. The boy's face from last night kept flashing in her head, the way he fell, the stillness after. She told herself it was self-defense, that it was him or them. But that didn't stop the question from clawing at her chest. "How many more?" "Thought you'd be inside." She looked up. The rookie, the same one from the truck, stood awkwardly in the doorway. He was young, couldn't have been more than 21. His uniform was too clean, his rifle too new. "I like the air out here," she said finally. He nodded, came out and sat near her, not too close. After a long silence, he said quietly, "I thought I was ready for this." She didn't answer. He swallowed hard. "Back there when the shooting started, I froze. I didn't even fire, I just waited." He was confessing, trying to make sense of it. She turned her head, studied him for a moment. "Next time," she said softly, "you won't wait." He looked at her, uncertain if it was reassurance or a warning. Maybe it was both. That night before they moved out, she sat alone in the corner of the barracks, writing in the small notebook she always carried. The words came slowly, like pulling teeth. She didn't write about the mission, didn't write about the ambush. She wrote about her sister. The way she used to laugh. The way she used to run down the dirt road outside their house, barefoot, calling her name. She hadn't seen her in 3 years, hadn't spoken to her since the day she deployed. They fought before she left, hard. And now every mission felt like a way to make up for that fight, even though her sister would never know. She closed the notebook, shoved it back in her pack and stood. The team gathered at 200. The night was moonless, stars sharp overhead. The valley lay ahead of them, black and silent. Every sound was louder in the dark. The crunch of boots, the click of safeties being checked, the soft whisper of fabric as packs shifted. They moved slow, deliberate. Her heart thudded against her ribs, steady but hard. Not fear, not exactly. Something heavier. Halfway down the ridgeline, the captain raised his hand. Everyone froze. She dropped to a knee, scanning. Then she saw it. Movement in the trees. Too many shapes to count. They were walking straight into them. The first shot cracked through the night. Then everything exploded. Muzzle flashes lit the dark like lightning. She went prone, found her sight picture and fired once, twice, 3 times, each shot deliberate, calm. The rookie was beside her, shaking but firing now, teeth clenched. Rounds kicked up dirt inches from her face. The world narrowed to sound and breath and recoil. When it was over, the valley was silent again. The smell of burned powder hung heavy. Bodies lay scattered along the tree line. Her ears rang. She sat back against a rock, breathing hard, hands slick with sweat. The rookie sat down beside her, chest heaving. "You were right," he whispered. "I didn't wait this time." She didn't answer. Her eyes were on the far end of the tree line, on the one body that lay face down, a hand outstretched like it was reaching for something. Something twisted in her chest. She turned away. By the time the sun rose, they'd secured the valley. It was a victory, that's what the captain called it. But it didn't feel like one. Not to her. Every step back up, the ridgeline felt heavier. Every breath harder. She kept her face blank, but inside she felt the crack widening. The war outside was loud, yes, but the war inside her was louder. Later, as they regrouped at the outpost, someone started a pot of coffee. The smell filled the air, bitter and familiar. She sat apart again, rifle across her knees, staring at the ground. The rookie tried to joke about something, but no one laughed. Everyone looked older than they had yesterday. Even him. When the captain finally dismissed them, she didn't go inside. Instead, she walked out past the sandbags, out where the dirt road curved away toward the hills. She stood there for a long time, helmet in her hands, staring at the horizon. She didn't cry, didn't speak. Just let the wind hit her face, cold and sharp, as if it might wake her up. Because the worst part wasn't what she'd done tonight. It was knowing that tomorrow she'd have to do it again. This time, she didn't even bother telling herself she was ready. She was. But she would go anyway. Because that's what she did. And because she didn't know who she would be if she stopped. Why was her finger frozen on the trigger? The world slowed, sound stretching thin, as if even the air was holding its breath. Through her scope, the figure was perfectly clear, silhouetted against the pale ridge beyond the valley. It would have been easy, too easy. One squeeze and the threat would be gone. But her hands refused to move. Her breath caught in her chest. And in that suspended heartbeat, she saw not the enemy, but the boy from the tree line. The moment passed. Someone else fired. The figure on the ridge dropped. She blinked hard, jaw tightening as if she could crush the moment before anyone noticed. But someone had noticed. The captain's eyes lingered on her, longer than usual, as he gave the all-clear. She slung the rifle without a word and fell back into formation. Back at the outpost, the tension sat heavy over dinner. The men ate fast, hunched over their trays, trading quiet remarks. She barely touched her food. The rookie sat across from her, glancing at her every few minutes like he wanted to ask something but didn't dare. Finally, he said softly, "You didn't fire." Her fork stopped halfway to her mouth. The others went quiet. She set the fork down, stood without a word, and walked out. Outside, the night was cold and starless. She paced near the perimeter fence, boots crunching softly on gravel. Her pulse still hadn't slowed. It wasn't that she hadn't seen the target. She had. It wasn't that she'd been too slow. She hadn't. It was that, for one split second, she hadn't wanted to. She gripped the chain-link fence until her knuckles ached. What was happening to her? This job had always been about precision, about control. You saw the target, you took the shot. No questions. No hesitation. That's why they trusted her. And tonight, for the first time, she hadn't done it. She didn't sleep. When dawn came, she was still sitting on the edge of her bunk, elbows on her knees, staring at the floor. Her rifle leaned against the wall within arm's reach. She hadn't touched it since last night. The captain found her like that. He didn't say anything at first, just stood in the doorway, arms crossed. Then, "You froze out there." It wasn't an accusation, just a statement. She looked up, met his eyes. "Yes, sir." "You gonna tell me why?" She hesitated. "I don't know," she said finally. He studied her for a long moment. "You do know," he said quietly. "You just don't want to say it." He left before she could answer. Later, the team prepped for another sweep. This one deeper into hostile ground. As they loaded gear, she kept her expression neutral, movements methodical. But inside, her stomach churned. Every time her hand touched the rifle, she felt it, that moment replaying in her head. Not just the hesitation. The choice. The rookie walked beside her on the trail as they moved out. He kept his voice low. "You were right, you know," he said. She frowned. "About what?" "About not waiting. If you hadn't taught me that, I wouldn't be here." She didn't answer. "Why didn't you shoot?" he asked after a beat. She glanced at him sharply. He held up his hands. "Not judging, just asking." She looked away. "I saw his face," she said finally. "And it looked like someone I used to know." He nodded slowly, as if that made sense. Maybe it did. They reached the valley mouth near dusk. The light was thin, shadows long. The captain signaled a halt and sent 2 scouts ahead. She crouched low, scanning the terrain, every sense stretched tight. The mountains swallowed sound here, made everything feel closer. Too close. A radio crackled softly. "Contact." The team fanned out, finding cover among the rocks. Her rifle was in her hands before she even thought about it. Through the scope, she saw movement, 3 figures crossing the dry creek bed, rifles slung casual. It should have been clean. 1 shot each. She lined up the first, exhaled, steadied, and stopped. Her pulse hammered. She lowered the rifle slightly, fingers trembling. "Take the shot," the captain's voice hissed over comms. She swallowed hard. Her finger didn't move. Then the rookie fired first. One figure dropped. The others scattered. Gunfire erupted all along the ridge. She jerked back to focus, firing almost on reflex now, no thought, just survival. When it was over, the silence came fast, heavy as the mountain air. She stayed prone a moment longer, breathing hard, hands shaking. The rookie crawled up beside her, face pale but lit with adrenaline. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded once, but her throat was dry. He didn't press. Back at the outpost, the captain pulled her aside. "You're not the same," he said bluntly. She bristled. "I got the job done." "Barely." Their eyes locked. "You need to figure out whatever this is," he said quietly. "Because if you freeze again at the wrong moment, we all pay the price." He left her standing there, fists clenched at her sides. That night she sat outside again, staring up at the mountains. The stars were bright now, cruelly beautiful. She thought about the boy from the tree line, about the figure on the ridge, about her sister, and about the person she used to be before all this. The war was still out there, but the war inside her was winning. And she didn't know how much longer she could fight both. When she finally stood, she made a choice. Tomorrow she would take the shot. Not because she wanted to, but because she couldn't afford not to. Even if it killed something inside her to do it. Why did the shot echo so long? It wasn't even hers this time. The rookie had fired first again, and the valley went deathly quiet after. No shouting. No return fire. No movement. Just the ringing in her ears and the metallic taste of adrenaline on her tongue. They approached the site slowly, rifles up. The figure lay face down in the dust, one arm outstretched. The rookie's breath came fast and shallow. She knelt, turned the body over. Her stomach went cold. The man couldn't have been more than 17. He was unarmed. The rookie's voice cracked. He was just standing there. "You saw a weapon," the captain cut in sharply. The rookie hesitated, eyes darting between them. I thought I did." The captain's jaw tightened. "Pack him up," he ordered. They dug a shallow grave near the ridge. No one spoke. Even the mountain seemed silent, watching. When the dirt was padded flat, the captain turned away without ceremony. Mission still had to be done. Supplies still had to be intercepted. The war didn't pause for grief. But she did. Every step after felt like she was walking through water. Her rifle was suddenly too heavy. Her chest too tight. She didn't look at the rookie. Didn't look at anyone. That night back at the outpost, the rookie came to her. His face was pale, eyes hollow. "I keep seeing him," he whispered. She didn't look up from where she sat cleaning her rifle. "Don't think about it." "How?" She stopped, hands frozen over the weapon. After a long silence, she said softly, "You don't, that's the only way you keep going." But even as she said it, she knew it wasn't true. Because she was thinking about it. And she couldn't stop. Later, the captain called her into the comms room. The light buzzed overhead, harsh and too bright. "You need to get your head back in this," he said without preamble. "I'm fine," she lied. "You're not, and neither is the kid." She said nothing. The captain leaned forward, voice low. "I can't have two people coming apart out there. Fix it, or I'll pull you both." She didn't sleep. Again. She sat on the edge of her bunk, staring at the dark window. Her hands trembled slightly, even at rest. She thought about the letter back in her bunk on base, the one no one was supposed to read until she was gone. Tonight she almost wished someone would. At dawn, another mission. Another ridgeline. Another set of orders. They moved out in silence. No jokes this time. No chatter. Just the sound of boots on hard dirt and the wind whispering through the grass. Halfway to the valley, the radio crackled. Movement ahead. They fanned out, taking cover. She went prone, rifle to her shoulders, scanning. Two figures appeared over the rise. Armed. This time she didn't hesitate. Her shot was clean. Too clean. Both figures dropped before anyone else fired. The rookie flinched at the suddenness of it. The captain just nodded once. Good work. She didn't answer. Her throat felt raw. Because she hadn't been sure they were hostile. Not entirely. They cleared the ridge and found a small cache of weapons and food hidden under a tarp. So maybe it had been the right call. But she didn't feel relief. She felt hollow. Because she hadn't hesitated this time, and she almost wished she had. Back at the outpost, the rookie found her again. You didn't wait, he said quietly. She looked at him, searching his face. You think I was wrong? He swallowed. I don't know, you didn't even breathe. She didn't answer. Because he was right. She hadn't even breathed. That night she sat with the notebook open, staring at the blank page. Her pen hovered but didn't move. She wanted to write about her sister. About the girl barefoot in the dust, calling her name. But all she saw was the face of the boy from last night. And the two from today. And all the others she tried to bury under silence. She closed the notebook. For the first time since she deployed, she wondered if she should have left this job a long time ago. But she didn't. Because she didn't know who she would be without it. And that scared her more than the next mission. The next day they were ambushed. It happened fast, a burst of gunfire from the ridge, rounds tearing into the dirt at their feet. She dove for cover, weapon up, scanning for the source. She spotted the shooter high on the slope, barely visible. She lined up the shot, finger tense on the trigger. And froze. Not because she couldn't shoot, but because she saw a second figure behind him, a small one. A child. Take the shot, the captain shouted over comms. She didn't move. The rookie swung his rifle, fired twice, dropping the shooter. But not fast enough. One of their own went down, clutching his shoulder, screaming. By the time it was over, they had secured the ridge. The medic worked fast, bandaging the wounded man. He would live, but he was out of the fight. The captain turned on her. You froze again, he hissed. She opened her mouth, closed it. There was a kid, she said finally. There's always a kid, he snapped. You hesitate, we bleed. You hesitate again, we die. He stalked off, leaving her standing there, every word like a blade twisting in her chest. That night she didn't sit with the others. Didn't clean her rifle. Didn't write. She just sat outside, staring at the mountains until her eyes blurred. Somewhere inside her, she felt something break. For the first time, she wasn't sure she wanted to go back out there tomorrow. But she knew she would. Because if she didn't, someone else would pay the price. The outpost was too quiet. Too still. They buried the adrenaline with the setting sun, but the silence stayed behind. She sat alone by the perimeter fence, helmet off, rifle across her knees. The stars were coming out, one by one, sharp and cold. She didn't look at them. Couldn't. Inside the barracks, the rookie's soft voice carried through the thin walls. He was talking to the wounded man. Apologizing. Over and over. She closed her eyes, pressing her forehead to the rifle's metal stock. The words weren't for her, but they might as well have been. Later, the captain came to find her. He didn't sit. Just stood there, hands on his belt, jaw set. "You can't keep doing this," he said. She didn't look at him. "Doing what?" "Choosing which fight you want to be in. Out here you don't get to pick." She finally met his eyes, her voice flat. "I didn't pick this one, any of it." The captain studied her for a long moment, then shook his head. "You think that makes you different from the rest of us." He left without waiting for an answer. That night she couldn't sleep. She didn't even try. Instead, she dug the notebook out from under her cot and carried it outside. The air was thin, cold, and dry. Her breath came out in pale clouds. She flipped to a blank page and began to write. "I saw your face again today. Not the real one. The one from the last time I saw you in the dust, barefoot, yelling at me to come back. I didn't, and I'm still not sure if I ever will." The pen scratched across the page. She wrote about the boy they buried. About the two she shot without thinking. About the child on the ridge. About the man screaming and clutching his shoulder while she stood frozen. "I think I'm losing the part of me that used to care if I made it home, and I don't know if that's good or bad. Maybe both." She stopped when the words blurred. The page was wet where her hand had rested. She turned the notebook over and pressed it against her chest like a shield. When dawn broke, she was still outside. Her face was pale, her eyes rimmed red. The rookie found her there. He didn't say anything at first, just sat down next to her, knees pulled to his chest. After a while, he said quietly, "Do you think he hates me?" She blinked, confused. "Who?" "The guy who got hit. Do you think he hates me for missing, for not shooting fast enough?" She turned to him slowly. "I don't know," she said honestly, "but I don't think it matters what he thinks. It matters what you do now." The rookie nodded, but his shoulders stayed tight. She recognized that look, because it was the one she'd been wearing for weeks. She reached into her jacket, pulled out the notebook, and handed it to him. "Write it down," she said. "What?" "Whatever you're carrying. Get it out of your head before it eats you alive." He hesitated, then took the notebook. He didn't write yet, but he held it like it was heavier than her rifle. That night they were ordered back out. The supply routes had shifted again. The outpost's food was running low. This run wasn't optional. They hiked through the dark, night vision goggles painting the world in pale green. She walked point senses sharp. Her hands didn't shake tonight. Not because she wasn't afraid, but because she'd finally stopped trying to fight the fear. Halfway through the canyon, they heard it. Voices. Low, careful, but close. The captain signaled them down. They crouched, rifles ready, scanning. A small convoy appeared, 3 figures, 2 carrying packs, one with a rifle slung casually over his shoulder. Her scope settled on the armed one first. She tracked him, breath steady. Finger on the trigger. And then she hesitated. Not because she was afraid, but because she saw their faces. Saw how tired they looked. Saw how the smallest one stumbled, barely keeping up. They weren't a squad. They weren't hunting anyone. They were just moving. The captain's voice came through comms, calm but sharp. "Take them." Her finger tightened, but she didn't fire. Instead, she shifted slightly and spoke into the comm. "They're not a threat, not armed enough to fight back. We don't need to hit them." Silence on the channel. Then the captain's voice clipped. "That's not your call." She exhaled slowly, never taking her eye from the scope. "It is tonight." The rookie looked at her, wide-eyed. The captain cursed under his breath, but didn't repeat the order. The figures passed, fading into the dark. And for the first time in weeks, she felt something loosen in her chest. When they reached the objective, a weapons cache hidden under a false rock pile, she worked with a calm efficiency she hadn't felt since the first day. They burned the cache. Destroyed every crate. Got out clean. No one died. Back at the outpost, the captain cornered her. You disobeyed a direct order, he said. She met his gaze evenly. And we still completed the mission. His jaw tightened, but he didn't press further. Maybe because he couldn't. That night, she opened the notebook again. This time, her words didn't shake. I made a choice today, not the one they wanted, not the one that made sense on paper, but the one I could live with. She closed the notebook. And for the first time since she got here, she slept. Deep. Dreamless. Like the mountains themselves had finally let her rest. The briefing room was too small for this many people. Bodies pressed close, the air smelled of sweat and cordite. Maps were pinned to the wall, lines of red ink running like veins. She stood at the back, arms crossed, listening. The captain outlined the plan, an intercept mission, fast and aggressive. Hit hard. No survivors. Her pulse stayed steady. This time, she didn't wait for the order to end before she spoke. There's a cleaner way, she said. The room went still. Heads turned. Even the captain paused. Cleaner? He asked, skeptical. She stepped forward, tapping the map with a gloved finger. They'll take this road. It bottlenecks here, a single access point. If we cut them off there, we can disarm them before it turns into a firefight. One of the older sergeants frowned. That's risky. If they don't stop, we're pinned. She met his gaze without flinching. Then we set the terrain to make sure they have to stop. Silence again. The captain studied her for a long moment. Finally, he nodded. Fine, your lead. She didn't smile. Didn't thank him. Just gathered her gear and left the room. The rookie caught up to her in the hall, his face pale but determined. You really think this will work? He asked. Yes, she said simply. You're not scared. She glanced at him, then away. Of course I am. The road was quiet under the moonlight. She and the rookie crouched behind a rock wall, watching the approach. The others were hidden further down, rifles ready but barrels low. She could hear her own heartbeat, steady as a metronome. The night smelled of dust and pine. Every sound seemed amplified, the click of her safety, the scrape of boots shifting in gravel. Then headlights. 2 trucks. Moving fast. Her breath slowed. She raised her hand, a silent signal, and the others tensed. The trucks hit the choke point and saw the barrier they'd built. Too late to turn. Brakes squealed. Engines roared. Men shouted. Wait, she whispered. The first man jumped out, weapon raised but not aimed. Just confused. That was her moment. She stepped into the open, rifle down but ready, her voice sharp. Drop it. He froze. The others spilled from the truck beds, but she held her ground, calm and steady. For a long second, no one moved. Then slowly, the man lowered his rifle. It clattered against the pavement. One by one, the others followed. Behind her, she heard the captain's low command. Secure them. Her team surged forward, zip ties snapping into place. No shots fired. No blood spilled. When the last man was restrained, she let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. Her knees didn't shake this time. Her hands were steady as stone. On the way back, the rookie walked beside her. You didn't even blink, he said, awe in his voice. She shrugged slightly. They were scared too. Sometimes that's enough. At the outpost, the captain approached her. He didn't look angry this time. If anything, he looked thoughtful. You saved us a fight tonight, he said. She nodded once. That was the point. He hesitated, then added quieter. You might have saved more than that. Later, she sat outside again, the notebook on her lap. But she didn't write right away. She just listened to the night. The sound of boots on gravel. The low hum of the generator. The way the wind moved through the wire fence, soft as breathing. "I think I'm starting to understand," she wrote finally. "The war isn't just about who survives. It's about what survives inside us. And tonight, for once, I think I kept something worth saving." The next day, they got word that a convoy to the north had been ambushed, not by them. Someone else had taken the fight, and civilians had been caught in the crossfire. Dozens dead. The rookie found her in the mess tent, his face pale. "That could have been us," he said. She looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. "Yes, it could have." And then, for the first time in what felt like months, she smiled. Not wide, not careless, just enough to let him see it was possible. That night the stars were sharp and bright, and for once she let herself look up at them. The war wasn't over. Not out there. Not inside her. But for the first time since it began, she felt like maybe she was winning. The mountains were black silhouettes against a storm sky. The radio crackled, low and urgent. "Intel just came in, target on the move. We intercept now or not at all." The captain's eyes swept the team. "You know the drill, fast, clean." She nodded once, but something in her chest tightened. Fast meant risky. Clean meant someone would have to make it clean. The road was narrow, cut into the cliffside. She led again, not because she had to, but because no one else moved first. The rookie stayed close, his face drawn but steady. The others followed, silent shadows in the dark. The wind howled through the canyon like it was warning them away. They heard the convoy before they saw it, the growl of engines, the metallic clatter of something loose in the back. She raised her fist. The team froze. Through her scope she saw 4 trucks. 2 with armed escorts. And her heart clenched, one with civilians in the back. Women. Children. Packed tight under a tarp. She keyed the comm. "Civilians in the 3rd truck. We can't hit them here." The captain's reply came back hard. "If we wait, we lose them." Her jaw tightened. "We hit now, they die with them." A pause. Then the captain's voice clipped. "Call it." The choice was hers. The world seemed to hold its breath. She exhaled slowly, thumb brushing the safety. "Hold," she said finally. "Hold until the 3rd truck clears." The seconds stretched. The 1st truck passed their position. The 2nd. Then the 3rd, the tarp lifting just enough for her to see the terrified faces beneath. She let them pass. Only when they were clear did she signal. Now. The canyon erupted. Shots cracked like splitting wood. Engines roared. Shouts echoed off the walls. She moved before she thought, taking position on the ridge. 1 shot, a gunner dropped. 2nd shot, driver down, truck veering into the rock wall. And then the world went sideways. An explosion ripped the air. Dust swallowed everything. She hit the ground hard, ears ringing. Through the haze she heard screaming. The rookie. Pinned under twisted metal. Blood on his leg. He was trying to pull free, panic in his voice. She scrambled toward him, lungs burning. Bullets tore the dirt around them. "Cover me," she shouted. 2 rifles opened up behind her, snapping fire at the ridge. She reached the rookie, dropped to her knees and grabbed the metal. It wouldn't budge. "Look at me," she said sharply. The rookie's wild eyes locked on hers. "You're not dying here, not today." She braced, using every muscle, every ounce of strength, and shoved. The metal gave way, just enough for him to crawl free. A shot rang out close. Too close. She spun, saw the muzzle flash, and fired back before she could think. The figure dropped. Silence followed. Her hands were shaking now. Not from fear, from the adrenaline burning through her veins. She grabbed the rookie, hauling him to his feet. Move! They fell back toward the team, step by step, covering each other as they went. The captain's voice cut through the comms. Last trucks down, we're clear, pull out. When they finally reached the extraction point, she collapsed to her knees, chest heaving. The rookie sat beside her, blood still seeping from his leg. You saved me, he said quietly. She didn't look at him. Not alone. The captain approached, dust and sweat streaking his face. You called it right, he said. His voice was low, almost grudging. If we'd hit sooner, those civilians would be dead. She met his gaze steady. And if we'd waited longer, we'd all be dead. The captain gave a short nod. Then, for the first time since she'd been here, he offered his hand. She hesitated, then took it. Back at the outpost, the rookie limped to his cot, still pale but smiling faintly. You know, he said, voice soft, I think I get it now. Why you wait, why you think before you shoot. She glanced at him, one brow raised. Do you? He nodded. Because some things are worth saving, even if it means risking everything. She didn't answer, just sat on the edge of her own cot, staring at the rifle across her knees. For the first time, it didn't feel like it owned her. That night, she opened the notebook again. But this time, she didn't write about fear, or guilt, or loss. Today, I chose who I wanted to be, not just a soldier, not just a survivor, someone my sister would still recognize. She closed the notebook and smiled, small, tired but real, because she finally believed the words. The rain started before dawn. A steady, soft rain, not enough to flood the road, just enough to turn the air into mist. She stood by the fence again, hood pulled low, rifle slung across her back. This time she wasn't alone. The rookie joined her, limping slightly, hands stuffed in his pockets. Neither of them spoke for a long time. When the trucks came to take them out for the last mission, she didn't feel that familiar knot in her stomach. No dread. No second guessing. Just a steady, quiet resolve. She climbed in first. Sat near the front. Her rifle rested against her leg, but it felt lighter now. The mission was simple. Escort a medical team to a remote village. Clear the road. Hold the perimeter while the doctors worked. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't clean. But it mattered. When they reached the village, the air smelled of wet earth and smoke. Children peeked out from behind doorways, wide-eyed. A woman stepped forward, young, face lined with worry, and nodded in gratitude. The doctors got to work. The team set up a perimeter. She walked the edge of the village, boots sinking into the mud, eyes scanning the tree line. But her mind was somewhere else. Not on the next fight. Not on the last one. On the faces of the people they'd let live. The rookie's laugh when he realized he'd survived. Her sister's voice still faint, still far away, but no longer accusing. A shout snapped her back. Movement in the tree line. Shadows shifting. She raised her rifle, then stopped. It was just a boy. Barefoot. Watching them. He froze when he saw her watching. For a long moment, they stared at each other. Then slowly, he stepped out of the trees. He was thin. Too thin. Carrying something small in his hands. She tensed, then saw what it was. Not a weapon. A canteen. He held it out to her. She lowered the rifle. Knelt in the mud. Accepted the canteen. The boy's dark eyes never left hers. When he turned and ran back into the trees, she stayed kneeling, staring at the canteen in her hands. The rain washed the mud from her gloves. Somewhere behind her, the rookie called her name. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she unscrewed the cap, poured a little of the water into the mud, and let it soak into the ground. A gesture so small, no one saw it but her. But she felt the weight in her chest ease. By nightfall, the mission was complete. The doctors packed their gear. The team loaded the trucks. As the engine started, she looked back one last time. The village glowed soft under the lantern light. Alive. Untouched. Still breathing. On the ride back, the captain glanced at her across the cabin. He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. At the outpost, she went straight to her cot. Pulled out the notebook one final time. I think I understand now. This war will never really end, not out here, not inside me. But maybe that's not the point. Maybe the point is to leave something standing when it's over, something better than what we found. She closed the notebook, tore the last page free, folded it carefully, and tucked it into the rookie's pocket while he slept. The next morning, she didn't stand by the fence. She packed her gear in silence. When the trucks came, she climbed aboard without a word. No speeches. No promises. Just one last look at the mountains, shrouded in mist. One last deep breath of the cold morning air. And then she turned away. When the truck pulled out, the rookie woke to find the folded paper on his chest. He read it once, twice, and then tucked it into his vest, close to his heart. No one saw her smile as the outpost disappeared behind them. But they felt the difference. In the way she carried herself. In the way she no longer looked haunted. In the quiet calm that filled the truck. And when the sun finally broke over the ridge, warm and golden, she closed her eyes and let it touch her face. For the first time in months, she felt warm. Alive. Human. Because sometimes dignity doesn't speak. It simply acts.